Champ, let's get back into some basketball. Patrick's going to get mad at me. I know you're probably going to get mad at me, but we got to talk about it. The Los Angeles Lakers acquired JJ Redick to become their new head coach. Champ, you were optimistic because you wanted to go into a different direction, and Dan Hurley looked like the guy for them, but he turned down the deal. What was it? A 6 year, 72 million dollar contract just
Yeah,
to be with the Lakers, but he turned that down because he was like, "No, I've already won national championships at UConn. I'm let me try my best to build a dynasty here as opposed to going to an NBA team even though it's the Los Angeles Lakers, but at the same time if things go wrong, I'm going to be viewed as the scapegoat."
yeah.
So I think the reason why the Lakers acquired JJ Redick is because, of course, LeBron. Their podcast, the things that they were doing, their relationship. I thought they should have gotten Monty Williams. After the Detroit Pistons decided to let him go after 1 year, they still owe him the remaining, $65 million of his contract. It's better for Monty Williams to join the Lakers because of his relationship with Anthony Davis going back to their days in New Orleans. Monty Williams is a well liked guy. I think he could do a better job as far as getting the other players to maximize their potential. JJ Redick, I'm not saying that JJ Redick doesn't know basketball. JJ Redick, if you just listen to him at ESPN, if you watch him on First Take, if you watch him on broadcasting in NBA Finals, he knows his basketball. But to be the head coach for a team, a lot of people are looking at it and saying, well, it's because of LeBron, your relationship with LeBron, and how are you going to handle this team? Is LeBron James going to allow him to do his job? And with the Lakers, man, champ, I hate to say this, this is comedy. It's looking like Comedy Central over here, man, because it's the Lakers are no longer the Lakers. What should the Lakers do? Do you think that Jeanie Buss should she just, give somebody else to handle basketball operations? What should the Lakers do? Because this is not the type of situation you want to be in.
Number one, I would be remiss if I didn't say this. People was gonna break people. I've seen it all over the internet. People say, "Well, Pat Riley didn't have any coaching experience when he came to the Lakers and they won championships." That's very, very different because he was already juiced into the organization. He was a part of that organization at one point in time. Not to mention, he learned under Jerry West, Chick Hearn, so he was already juiced in with that organization. At one point in Pat Riley's career in Los Angeles, they used to call him Riles. They didn't call him coach, so he had to make them at one point look. You have to call me coach, so the players will respect me instead of calling me Riles. So that's a whole nother situation. And that team was already championship ready. He just had to add his own flavor into it. Not and also we've seen another example where a coach could succeed his first year in the league and taking someone to the NBA finals in Mike Dunleavy. We saw him take the Showtime Lakers, turn them into slow down Lakers, where they're more in the post rather than breaking out and running and gunning. And they were able to take them to the NBA finals where we unfortunately lost to the GOAT in Michael Jordan, 4-1 in the finals. But I digress. Number one, a lot of things that need to stop happening is you have to get we have to stop having so many chiefs in the front office. There needs to be, in the great words of Joe Clark in Lean on Me, there needs to be one boss. One. And when you look back at the Lakers from 2010 on back to, I will say, 1981, you knew there was only one boss in the Los Angeles Lakers organization, and that was Dr. Buss. Now, he also had a very, very strong minded general manager all of those years in the great Jerry West. There's no Jerry West on this team. I believe that Jerry West got players because they were good for the team and they were good to add to championship teams, not because it looked good on paper, not because it was just going to put butts in the seats. It was because they were going to win championship teams. They were going to win championships. So you need a general manager that's going to stabilize that organization. We don't need guys that's just going to get big names. Everybody knew that the whole Westbrook situation wasn't going to work in Los Angeles. And, at the point of where basketball was during that time, we knew that wasn't going to work. Very, very ball dominant player, really couldn't shoot a lot of threes, really wasn't going to help you out on defensive perimeter, really stat padding when it came to, the triple doubles and everything. But we knew that was not going to work. And that is why, Frank Vogel unfortunately had to take the brunt end of that at that certain point. But they need to get a true general manager in there, not someone from the Laker organization. You need to get some fresh eyes in there to see exactly what's going on. Because you hiring within that organization is not getting you anywhere. It's not. You've tried that. What worked in the past is not going to necessarily work right about now. So what you need to do is you need to go out there and get you a general manager, a true general manager. I don't think Rob Pelinka has done okay. He did bring us a championship, but long term, I don't think that's going to work. Number two, stop getting players for the short term just for the name. Get you some players that's going to help long term. If you look at all the players that if you look at all the players that we traded, with the exception of, Lonzo Ball, because he's been hurt a lot, God bless him, everybody has pretty much flourished after they left. When you think about Ingram, when you think about
Josh Hart.
Josh Hart. When you think about Julius Randle, he became a focal point in that New York offense and their defense and their pressure defense. When you think about Lonzo Ball, before he got injured, he became a defensive stopper as far as on the perimeter is concerned. So he made all defensive team at least 3 to 4 times in Chicago. So if you think about all of those players that we lost trading for AD, that could have very well been a long-term catalyst for a championship team when you think about it. So the thing is, you have to understand where the NBA is going as far as in the draft, as far as European players are concerned, and coaching. We haven't had a stable coach since Phil Jackson. Since Phil Jackson, we've been firing coaches at a rate of once every 2 to 3 years. So that's another thing we need to stop. My thing is, there's no free agent coming to Los Angeles because they're so unstable. You can no longer rely on Los Angeles being the brand that it is because of the advent of social media. You have to sell something else. There used to be where, hey, you come to Los Angeles, there's these opportunities in Hollywood. There's a lot of opportunities off the court. Now people, you can't sell them on that because of social media. Because Shaq proved long before social media, you could be a huge star without being in Los Angeles. He did that in Little Orlando. So you're no longer able to sell, well, this is Los Angeles, this is Hollywood. Hollywood is calling. No, you can't sell them on that anymore. Plus, you don't have a winning culture at this point in time. So first and foremost, you need to get a new general manager. You need to change the culture, and you need to change the way you scout. And you need to change in your scouting department. And you need to stop getting the most huge, big-name players when you know they're not good for your scheme and know they're not good for your team. What's happening is...
Go ahead,
I'm sorry, my head.
No, go ahead.
What's happening is LA loves a winner. But the thing is, when you're not winning and you're just bringing big-name players in, eventually fans are going to catch on to that. And when you are just looking short-sighted in terms of, okay, let's just put some butts in the seat for now and then we'll figure things out later, you are doing not only your organization a disservice, but you're doing your fans a disservice.
Right.
And what shocks me most about this is because as a Laker fan, we thought that once Jeanie took over, it was going to be a turning point because she had been working in the organization for so long.
And not to mention, you're replacing your brother Jim Buss, and we saw how bad he was.
Terrible when he was running over. It got bad quick. So everybody thought that Jeanie Buss was going to be the catalyst of what changed that organization around. But unfortunately, everybody has been It's been a real. It's not much has changed except for that one bubble championship. It's been getting big name players that don't fit your scheme just for the notoriety, for the sake of getting the player, and that has basically backfired and interfered with us winning long term. And until they figure that out, we're going to continue to suffer as fans alone, especially after LeBron leaves, because LeBron only has maybe 2-3 years. Hell, he can't play till he's 50. So he maybe has 2 to 3 more years at this point in time. So you better start darn well getting yourself together in gear. So when he retires, you have another core in order to bring in there. Otherwise, you're going to be suffering a long time, because even after Magic retired, at least you had hope with guys like Nick Van Exel and Eddie Jones that you were drafting, Eldon Campbell, Lonnie Divac that you had drafted, although we didn't make the playoffs. At least you had some holdovers from that Showtime squad in the 90s, where we wasn't doing as good until the late 90s. At least you had hope. Right now, you don't have a what to piss in or a window to throw it out of at this point in time. So you need to get it really together, Los Angeles, before you find yourself, and be patient. Look what being patient did for Boston. Look what being patient did for New York. Look what being patient did for the Golden State Warriors, for the Denver Nuggets. So be patient. Fans will be patient if they know you're committed to winning. They're not going to be patient if they know you're just bringing guys in just to put the butts in the seats.
Champ, I think you're gonna have to blow up house, clean up house. It's not just getting a GM. You're gonna have to completely clean up this house. LeBron's gonna finish his last couple of years in LA because of the business side. What are you gonna do with Anthony Davis? I suggest you probably trade him because AD, he was great last season. Played how many games he played? 75, 76 games.
76
So,
games. Yeah.
and AD, given his durability history, how long is he going to last? I mean, you got some other nice players there with Austin Reeves, Vanderbilt on the defensive side, but I think it's just time to clean up house because first round in the playoffs, it's not enough anymore. Making it in the play-in tournament, not enough anymore. So you're just gonna have to clean up house. You're gonna have to get a right type of GM. I would love to see him get like a GM somewhere from the Bucks, somewhere from the Spurs, Thunder, or any good organization that can help out the Lakers. But it's going to take more than a while in order for you to deliver that. Question is, how are Laker fans, how are they going to tolerate it? How patient they're going to be? And look, with Genius, you got to get a basketball mind to help out this team. Jeanie can help out with the business stuff. Not questioning Jeanie with that, but you got to get a basketball mind and you got to get the right types of scouts, trainers to not only draft but also develop these young players. Because I've mentioned before, champ, Lonzo, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, Julius Randle, even D'Angelo Russell now with the Lakers. All when they departed LA, they got better.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an indictment on the Lakers as an organization because wait a minute, you have all this young talent who most of them who most of them have developed. Actually, all of them have developed. Some of them
Mm-hmm.
have been made all-star appearances, and yet at this point, it looks bad. If they had Dan Hurley, champ, that would have been a sign for something good to come. He's a young guy. He can work with some of the younger players. How's he going to work with LeBron? Because LeBron is perceived as this coach killer. I don't know how you feel about it. I'll let you decide that for yourself. You can speak on it. But I think with the Lakers, man, it's just not the right type of place in order to forget free agents, younger players. Because, yeah, it's LA. Yeah, it's a big market. Everyone loves being LA. But is it going to help me grow and evolve my game? Is it going to help me maximize my potential? And with the Lakers moving forward, man, how are they going to be? So you might as well clean up house. And if you think about trading for Anthony Davis or something to get first round pick or second round pick or something, if you can get a good return, you might as well do that.
I mean, the thing is this, and you bring up a valid point, PSP, with blowing it up because the thing is, it's not going to get any better with this team. We overachieved when we went to the Western Conference Final. It's not going to get any better. And my thing is, hey, for all, I will say this. We can talk about free agency, but guess what? Out of the last 10 years, only 2 free agents have really shown up in LA and made a difference. That was Ron Artest and LeBron. We haven't had a lot of big free agents come to Los Angeles. We haven't had a Shaquille O'Neal come there. We haven't had a lot of guys come there that was just gonna really just bring it hard and bring it and just change that culture that we have. And there's a reason for that, and that is the departure, and unfortunately, the death of Dr. Buss. You know, the thing is, I think if he would still be alive, and it would be a whole nother situation in Los Angeles. There's no way that we would have went through what we went to at the end of Kobe's career. Excuse me. Not to mention what we're going through now. It's just like Europe. For all this talk about how, you know, remember how, you know, this is no shade to Jeanie. She's a very nice lady, you know, and, you know, she knows the business part. But, you know, remember how, you know, all the shade was being thrown on Jim Buss about trying to do a whole lot that really didn't make sense. They're repeating the same cycle that they did with Kobe. The only difference is they're making the playoffs. They're repeating the same cycle. It's just like bringing players in that really don't make sense. Antoine Jameson back then didn't make sense. Russell Westbrook didn't make sense.
Just for name and notoriety.
Yeah, just for name and notoriety. It didn't make sense.
Do you remember? Now, I'm sorry. Go ahead, champ.
Oh, my bad. And now you have LeBron on his last leg at this point in time. Although he's productive, you can't rely on him too much. Anthony Davis, you can't rely on him too much. He might break. So you're doing the same thing. The only difference is you have 2 players that are really just gasping, you know, holding your collective breath in order to see if the time is going to come, versus back then you only had 1 player in Kobe. So it's basically you're repeating the same cycle that Jim did.
Which is pretty strange because you're like, Jeanie, you saw what your brother did and that didn't work out. So why would you replicate that? And it's interesting that you bring that up, champ, because remember, during the 2012-2013 season, Mike Brown was the head coach for like the first 5 or 6 games. He was let go. Mm-hmm. They could have brought in Phil Jackson, but instead they decided to go with Mike D'Antoni. And okay, but Mike D'Antoni, how does his style work with the older roster? That would fit well if you were like a younger roster, but you had Pau Gasol, who's in his 30s. Kobe was 34 at that time. Dwight Howard, yeah, he was 26, 27, but he's coming off the bad back, and then later he had the torn labrum. So how was that going to work? But the problem is with the Lakers, they just keep on getting big name guys because they want to do everything they can to attract their franchise and the market, which is LA. So you're going to have to go into a different direction by tanking. I hate that. I don't like tanking as much as people don't like to do it. But at the same time, if you're going to continue going this way, what's it going to get you? To your point, they overachieved. I mean, how far are you going to go to a conference finals with that type of roster? You're probably going to, at best, make the playoffs or make the play-in tournament and lose. That's about it with this Lakers team. But I hope JJ Redick can prove me wrong because he does know basketball. But with him and LeBron, how is that going to work? Yeah, it's going to work when you break down film, when you talk basketball, when you know X's and O's, or when you hang out or sip on some wine or whatever. But how is it going to work in an NBA game? How is it going to work in the locker room? How is that type of relationship going to work? And how is JJ going to do his part as far as with the players and LeBron? Is JJ Redick going to be allowed to do his job? That's the thing.
That's an interesting question that you bring up because the thing is, you know, when you hire your drinking partner, it's kind of hard to, you know, it's kind of like, I will say this, it's kind of like us being on this podcast and all of a sudden one of us become each other's bosses. How's that going to work? It's kind of weird. It's like, okay, how you go? Are you gonna feel comfortable with coming to me? And even if you have to kind of like have this moment of uncomfortability, are you gonna be able to come to me? And am I gonna be receiving of that at a certain point? Because it's gonna be look like, and I know, and the thing is, people will say, well, everybody's an adult. You don't know how it's gonna be. You have a podcast with your coach. I mean, is the podcast gonna continue? I mean, you got to ask yourself whatever happened to conflict of interest at a certain point, because the thing is, it's like, okay, you my drinking partner and my podcast partner, but you're also my coach now. How comedic is this at this point in time? And you got to ask yourself, when a coach like Monty Williams can get fired, because granted, there was a lot of off the court issues that he was having, because when you think about, a family member of his passed away, and then now his current spouse has cancer. That's a lot to deal with at this point in time. That's a lot to deal with. Now, for him to get fired, and he's had less than a year in order to try to turn this thing around, after not only going to the NBA Finals, but also getting a number one seed in Phoenix at this point in time. But you can see a guy like JJ Redick, who's only been on TV and a podcast, to get a coaching job with arguably the most visible team in the NBA at this point. What does that say about NBA coaching? Is it becoming a civic joke at a certain point? Because whereas we're seeing in the NFL and a lot of other sports, we can't wait to see the next offensive coordinator or the next defensive coordinator step into that head coaching role. We're seeing guys with jobs that have no business having jobs in the NBA. Doc Rivers, unfortunately, included.
I think it's nepotism, champ. Because remember, Mike McCarthy, when he got the head coaching job for the Dallas Cowboys, was it really him in Green Bay, or was it really Aaron Rodgers or what he was surrounded with in Green Bay? Remember, I told you, Jerry brought Mike McCarthy over to the crib for beer and nachos. Am I lying?
You're not lying, but at least I will say this: at least with McCarthy, he
He
had
won
a
a Super
rap
Bowl. I'll
sheet
give him that.
for
I'll give him that.
winning. He had a rap sheet, because there were some guys, that was there before him, that with Brett Favre, he couldn't win with him, but he won with Aaron Rodgers, just a couple of years after he became a starter. I think that's what got him the job, and then he had a lot of good seasons. But even with him, at least he's winning. He's not Dallas. There's a difference between winning and Dallas Cowboy winning. You know, he's not replicating that. He's not replicating that magic that he had at Green Bay. But Dak Prescott did have one of his greatest seasons this year. He didn't get a lot of help in the running game or on that defense. They was running through him like a hot knife through butter in the
And to his
playoffs.
credit, he did a
Yeah,
good job calling the plays on offense. Mind you, this was
yeah,
without Kellen Moore.
yes.
Yeah.
So at least with him, you can say that. But in the NBA, you have coaches that have proven rap sheets. Monty Williams should not have been fired. And then for him to get fired, and this has nothing to do with the R word, by the way. This just has to do with coaching in general. Monty Williams get fired, but a guy who's just because he's cool with the guy is like, hired to be the head coach. It was just like, it's kind of like, a great wrestling mind says, you're the guy that works with the guy that draws the money, so you get the job. It doesn't make sense at this point.
It doesn't. It seems, but people gonna look at it and say the power of LeBron is kind of like he's like the NBA version of the power of Oprah. So that's how they're gonna look at LeBron with this man. But the only way they can solve all this, champ, is by winning. So the only way you can cure all this is winning, man. So I don't know what you're gonna have to be on. I mean, you probably gonna have to be drinking. It's gonna be some long nights for you in being a Lakers fan. That I can tell you.
Yeah, I already got to deal with the Falcons. At least the Lakers brought some real relief to the team.
Hey, at least you got something with the Falcons to look forward to. I
Yeah,
mean, they should win the division, and that's about it. At
yeah.
least you got something to look forward to.
But the
You
basketball
losing
is
that,
going to be a long season.
you losing that division with the addition of Kirk Cousins and with everything you have now, champ. I don't know what to
Yeah,
tell you. I don't know
yeah,
what to
that'll
tell
be
you.
nasty
That'd be
work.
worse than the Falcons losing to the Panthers last year. at Carolina, which a game you should have won.
Yeah, I mean now anytime you hold a team to 3 field goals and you don't win a game, that just goes to show you how bad your offense is. But I digress.